So what we're going to start doing now is building up our project. So the first thing we want to do is create all our folders that we need in our project. So first of all, we're going to need a folder for CSS. So we'll create that. And we're also going to need a folder for our JavaScript. We're going to need a folder for our includes. We're going to need a folder for our pages. Another folder for our templates. Another folder for our models. Okay, alright, so let's just check that we haven't forgotten anything. So we need CSS, includes, JavaScript, models, pages, templates, and I forgot about the image folder. So let's create a folder for our images. Okay. So now we've got our basic structure there. We don't need a folder for our controllers because our controllers will go in the root folder. So what we'll do is we'll start by making models to access the data in our database. So in our models folder, we're going to create our models. Now you need a model for each entity that you have in your database. So if we remember, we have 4 entities: users, orders, products, and categories. So we need to make 4 models. So we need we're going to need a users model. We're going to need an orders model. We're going to need a categories model, and we're going to need a products model. Okay, now that we have our models files here, even though they're empty, we're going to need to use some includes while we're working with this. So we're going to add them into the includes folder. So these are similar to what we've worked with before. So let's just go and upload those here. So we're going to need DB connect, utility functions, authorization user, and authorization admin. So first of all, let's add DB connect. That's the most basic thing we need. So let's just open that up and just have a look, remind ourselves what's in there. So it's a server name, username, password, DB name. We create a MySQL connection, and if there's a failure, then we kill the script. So that's a very basic DB connect include. Okay, we can also add our utility functions.php, which is here, which is basically just got our redirect function to redirect the user. So what that does is it tells the user to request a different page, or the client rather. So those are the 2 basic includes that we'll need for now. Later on, when we add security, we'll need authorization includes as well. So perhaps we should add those now as well, just so that we have them. Okay, so we'll add authorization admin and authorization user. Okay, authorization user and authorization admin. If we have a look at authorization user, basically what it does is if there's no session, it starts one, and then this code here basically checks whether the person has done anything in the last 60 minutes. If they haven't, then we log them out like this. Otherwise, If it's okay, they haven't timed out, they're still within 60 minutes, then we can check here. If first of all we check that there is a user ID in the session and that there's a role for the user, and then we check that if the role is not equal to user and the role is not equal to admin, okay, then we will kill the script and echo the message not authorized. So basically it's just checking if there's no user logged in, or if the user is not the user's role is not user, or the user's role is not admin, then we'll kill the script and stop anything else from running. So we just include this if we want a template to own, or a template or a page or a controller to only be accessible by a user or admin. Similarly, if we look at authorization admin, it's the same thing, but this time we will only let an admin in. We won't let a user in. But we'll come back to those two includes when we add security later on. Okay, so now that we've added those, we can start working on our models. So we're going to start off with the categories model. The reason we're starting with the categories model is because it's the simplest. And in a model, if we remind ourselves, a model needs to access the database. So what it will do is put information into the database and get information out of the database. So we'll have different functions to do that. So we'll have a function to get data out, a function to put data in, a function to change data, and a function to delete data. In other words, matching the SQL queries, select, update, delete, insert. Okay. So let's start with the categories. If I open that up. So the first thing I want to do is start a PHP tag, because we're going to be writing PHP code now, and we need to require once the db connect file, and it's in the includes folder /dbconnect.php. Right. So let's start off by making a function to get a list of all the categories. So we start off by using the function keyword, and we'll call it get categories. Okay, this will get a list of all the details of all the categories. So you'll notice here in the brackets, that's where it would receive values, receive parameters. This one does not need to receive any, because there's no, the select query doesn't have a where of any kind. So first of all, we'll need the connection. So we're going to be using this con object, which comes from the db connect file. Because it's in a function, we need to declare it in a way that it's accessible. So we'll call it global con. So if that, the technical details of how that works is a little bit tricky, but all you need to do is that to use the connection from here, you need to call it global con. Okay, now we need to write a statement. So let's call it stmt equals to. So now we'll prepare a statement, my SQLi underscore prepare, and we'll use the connection, and we'll add our query. So what we want to do is select star from categories. So very simple select. It will select all the details of all the categories. Okay, then we execute this query. So we're going to say success equal to MySQLi underscore stmt underscore executes. Right, and we'll execute the statement. Okay, so this will execute the statement and then store true or false into success, whether it successfully executed this or not. Right, then we want to get the results. So result equal to MySQLi underscore stmt underscore get underscore result. Okay, so in here I want to give it the statement. Okay, so this will give us the result set, which we store into result. Okay, so the next thing we need to start doing is convert the result set into a two-dimensional associative array. So to begin with, I'm going to declare a variable which I'm going to store that in, called result ARR. First, I'm going to make it equal to false, so that if we are unsuccessful, then our function will return false. If it is successful, it will return a two-dimensional array. So we first need to just quickly check if our query was successful. So we say if success and MySQLi underscore num rows more than or equal to 0. Num rows more than or equal to 0. So this checks if the statement successfully executed and if we have more than or 0 rows. Okay, so then what we want to do is actually put what our details into the 2D array. So $result array equal to MySQLi underscore fetch all, and we give it the result, and we tell it that we want an associative array, like so. Okay. Alright, and then what we want to do is close the statement underscore stmt underscore close, and we need to give it the statement stmt. Okay, and then what we want to do is return the result array. Okay, so like I said before, if the query was successful, we will return a two-dimensional associative array. If it was unsuccessful, this will return false. So that's the basic to get the details of all the categories. So what we also would probably like to do is have a function to get an individual category. So what I'll do is copy that again. So we are repeating ourselves a bit. Ideally you want to avoid that when you program, but in our case we are going to do this. So get category, and let's say it receives a category ID, like so. Okay, so this time we will add a where clause. So where category ID is equal to question mark. So question mark is what we will replace. So after we've created the statement like that, what we're going to need to do is to bind a parameter to that. Okay, so semicolon. What I like to do is neaten this up a bit like so. We can make it a little bit easier to read. You can do the same thing up here if you wanted to. It's not absolutely necessary. Just sort of tab that over. Cool. So let's add here MySQLi underscore bind, STFT bind param, there it is. You give it the statement $stmt and the list of data types. In our case it will be a single integer, and then the parameters. So in our case it will be category ID. Okay, category ID. We'll get category, we'll get category. Okay, that should be it. So in this case the only difference is that because I had a parameter here, I had to bind a value to that parameter, which the function receives the value, and we bind that parameter to that question mark, and then everything else pretty much remains the same. Okay, so now we have two functions to select, one to get all the categories, and one to get the details for a specific category. Okay, so now we're going to add a function to perhaps update a category. Okay, so when you update a category, we're not going to need to return an array. We're just going to need to return a true value or a false value. So let's make that function update category, like so. Okay, so in update category, it will need to receive the category ID, okay, and the name of the category, which we'll call category. So again, we need to do a lot of the same things. So what I need is global con, because I need the connection to the database. Then what I need to do is prepare a statement. Okay, so we'll do it like this. Okay, so the statement we'll prepare this time will be an update statement. So we want to update categories, and we want to set category equal to question mark, because we don't know what it is yet, where category ID equal to question mark. So those need to bind the category that we received, the new name for the category, and we'll also need to know which category it was for, so the category ID here. Okay, like so. Great. Then what we can do, we need to close brackets and end the statement. Right, then again we need to, we're going to need to bind some parameters, like so. Okay, this time we have a string and then an integer, so si. The first one is the category, so that will be from there. The second one is the category ID from there, like so. Okay, then we need to execute the query. So let's execute that statement, like so. And what we need to do next is we can actually just close the statement, because we don't need anything else from this. We just need to know if it was successful or not. So we could just close the statement and return success. Okay, because success will have true or false in it depending on whether the query worked correctly or not. Right, so neaten that up a bit. Okay, so we've done a select to get all the categories, and we returned either false or a 2D array. We also did one where we got a single category based on the category ID and then returned an array or false if it didn't work. And this time we're going to update a category, change the category name using the category ID, and it will return true if it worked and false if it did not work. Okay, so we've done 2 selects, an update. Now let's do an insert and a delete. Okay, so let's do an insert. So I'm just going to copy that function and make some changes to it. Okay, so this one is going to be insert category. Okay, so it will need to receive a category, not a category ID. It doesn't need a category ID because it is not going to give a primary key to the database. The database is going to auto-generate it because it will be an auto-increment field. So it just needs to receive category. Right, then let's write our SQL. We'll do insert into categories. Okay, and then we need to say for which columns, so it will be for the category column only. And then we'll need to write the values. Alright, so the values will be question mark. We don't know what that is yet. This we can probably put into the same line. Okay, and semicolon. So this time we're only binding one variable, which will be a string, and that will be category, which came from there. For other tables, there might be a whole list of fields which you might want to add here and add to here and here. So once we've done that, we just execute the statement, and it'll give us a true or false if it succeeded or not. Close the statement and return that true or false if we were successful or not. Okay, so let's look at deleting a category. Again, it's very simple, and let's copy that and change this. Again, it's just a statement that returns, just a function that returns true or false. So all we need to do is, this time it will receive the category ID because that's what we use to identify a category. And what we'll do is simply delete from categories where category ID equals question mark. We'll bind one parameter, which will be an integer. That's the category ID, which will come from which will be given to the function. Execute the statement that will give us true or false, whether it was deleted or not, which we can then return. Okay, and I should change the name of this. It's not insert category, it's delete category, like so. Okay, right, so those are the basic functions that you need for a model. You need 2 selects, one to get everything, one to get a specific record, one row, one to update a row, one to insert a new row, and one to delete a row. Now in practice you will have more than just these, and you'll have more complicated ones. You will also need to probably have some which join to other tables, but we'll cover that later. So now that we've added these functions, we can close our PHP like so, and that is our whole file, so which we should save. So that's now the basic model for categories. Okay, so that's our categories finished. Our categories model, which has a few functions in it, like so. So for our other models, let's go back and look at our database structure. If you look at our database structure, you'll see that Categories is a very straightforward table. We've actually don't have description, we're just dealing with category. And if you look, the next one we'll do is products, because it's also fairly straightforward. Users will be a little bit more complicated because it's got some security in it. Then we have orders, will probably be the most complex because it's going to need to pull from all different other tables. So what we're going to do is just add the basic functions that we need for each model, for each entity. And what we will do is, as we do the rest of our project, we will find we need extra functions. And as we need those extra functions, we'll add them to our models. Okay, so let's move on to products. So let's open up products, and it's going to be all of very similar functions. So in fact, I can copy most of that from the categories file and adapt it to my products. So for example, I will get products, which will simply be select star from products. Okay, and then we want to get a single so then we'll have to change that. Let's just double check there's nothing else we need to change here. Nope, that's pretty much all the same. Okay, so here we want to also get product using the product ID. Okay, so we'll copy that. We will use the product ID here, and we'll select star from products, where product ID is equal to some parameter. So, okay, select star from products with product ID is equal to some parameter. Okay, there we use I. Let's see if there's anything else we need to change here. Nope, looks good. Okay, let's get an individual product. Let's update a product. Okay, product. Update product, and we'll need the product ID. Okay, and then this has a few more fields. So let's go to our database and check here. I've got product, cost, price, quantity, picture, and category ID. So product, cost, and price. Let's start there. Product, cost, and price. Okay, product, cost, and price. So then I will need quantity, picture, which is that binary blob containing a picture, and category ID. Like so, category ID. Okay. I think that's all. So let's count to double check. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7 parameters. So we need to update products. Okay, and we're going to set product equal to question mark. Okay, comma, cost equal to question mark, comma, price equal to question mark, comma, quantity equal to question mark, comma. Right, and we also have picture and category ID. So picture equal to question mark, and then which category it's in. So category ID equal to question mark. Okay, so we've got product, cost, price, quantity, picture, category ID, where product ID equal to question mark. So let's see how we bind these. So we remove those. So we look at the variable data type. So product is a string. Price is a real number. So we'll use D for decimal. Right. Quantity is also decimal. Picture is a blob. So picture is a binary object which is going to contain the zeros and ones for the actual picture. So it might seem strange, but for this you actually use string. And then category ID will be integer and product ID will be integer. And you put the parameters in the same order that they will come in here. Okay, so first of all you need product. Okay, so we'll have product. Then we'll need cost. Okay, and then we're going to need price. Next is quantity. Next is picture. Picture. And finally, or almost finally, category ID. Okay, and then the last one here was the product ID. So we'll go ahead and do that. We add the product ID, which is actually the first parameter given to the function. Add that there, like so. Okay, so that's our update product function. Right, let's change the insert product function. So we'll have insert product, and again it will need these same details here. Okay, so it will need those same things there, like so it will need those same ones there. The only thing it doesn't need is the product ID, because that is auto increment in the database. So we don't actually add that. The database will create that automatically. So we want to insert into products. Okay, we want to insert into products, and it will be those list of field names. So it will be this list of field names, which we can use this to adapt. So we'll just put that in there. So it will be product, cost, price, quantity, picture, and category ID. So we want to insert into products, product, cost, price, quantity, picture, and category ID. The values will be, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parameters. And then we need to put the data types of those as well. So it'll be similar to this. It's going to be string, decimal, decimal, string, integer. Category ID is integer. Okay, the only thing we don't have this time is product ID. So we'll execute that, return what we need to there. Okay, and then finally we'll need delete product. Delete product with the product ID. Okay, receive the product ID. It will delete from products. Okay, where product ID equal to question mark. And we'll see the integer and run there. Okay, so that's the basics of then doing the functions for another model. So what you can do is repeat this process, and you can do it for users and orders. This is not going to give you all the functions that you need. We are going to need to add functions to our models later on as it becomes apparent that we need them. And that's because we're going to need to join tables together and various other things, and maybe do other kinds of processing. And to the users model, we'll have to add functions to log in, log out, etc. later on. Okay. So you can see I've repeated this for users. I have a get users function, a get user function, update user function, insert user function, and delete user function. And then for orders, I have a get orders function, get order function, update order function, and delete order function. Just something to notice in the update order function, paid is a Boolean, in other words true or false. In the database I've saved it as a bit data type. That means it will be a 0 or a 1 as a number. That's why when I gave it the data type here, when I binded the parameters, you'll see that date is a string and paid is an integer, not B for Boolean, it's I for integer, because we'll represent 0 to be false and 1 to be true. Okay, so that means that we have now finished the basics of our 4 models. But what we're going to need to do is later on we're going to need to come back to these and add extra functions as we program and as we realize that we need new functions. So for example, in users, I'm going to need to add a whole lot of functions on authentication, like logging in, logging out, etc. In orders, I'm going to need to add functions where I actually join more than one table. For example, I don't just want the 3 details from the orders table. I will also want to know which products are in that order and which user the order is for and the details of that user. So later on I will need to add extra functions for that.